So we are excited to have our panelists here today, and we will be talking about the topic navigating work pressure as a Christian. So, maybe if we may start with Simeon now that is on the far left, we can talk about what would be your feel of work pressure as a Christian. What kinds of pressure do you experience? You may give us a personal experience or experience of many other Christians within your space.
So I want to look at work pressure in two ways. There is pressure for performance, which can go both ways. Pressure to, bring numbers and maybe deliver on your duties. There's also pressure for which is leaning more towards an ethical practice, where the business or the company or the organization you work for has a certain expected outcome, that for you to achieve that outcome requires you to perform it in a certain way, which may not be aligned with your Christian values. So I don't know whether I need to answer both fronts, the unethical side or the pressure for performance.
Yes, you can go ahead and talk of everything.
Okay, so I want to look at pressure, especially towards something that goes against your Christian values. And I would say largely when you talk of pressure, you're basically looking at somebody trying to sort of push you either to control the outcome or push you to achieve a certain or move in a particular direction. So to set it clear, I would say that largely as human beings, we are driven by two things, or we are controlled by two things. And this is, we are either controlled by our interest or controlled by fear. Those are the two things that control. So either you fear, if in a workplace, you have an interest to earn an income. That's the interest. And then you have a fear of losing the job. So those are the two things that largely drive pressure. So if you are able to manage the interest and the fear, then you are able to manage the pressure. I'll come back to explain in detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simeon, for that. And coming to you, Douglas, with your wealth of experience as a banker, what would you talk generally in banking and even outside banking? What are some of the situations that Christians face that will become pressure on the salvation, pressure on your personal values, and generally even on your performance, as Simeon has put it?
Thank you so much. I think as my colleague has aptly put it, I look at pressure from the source. As somebody who is employed and maybe in an organization, I want to look at it from where does this pressure come from. One, pressure can be coming from the external sources, that is maybe your supervisors, your organization. And part of that pressure, as my colleague has said here, may include performance or maybe pressure to conform to a specific corporate tradition that may not be in line with your Christian faith. My second category of pressure or the source of pressure may be internal. As a person, I have my personal pressure to do ABCD to achieve this, pressure to conform to this kind of a social setup. And then lastly, I look at pressure in form of from external now, the environment. So maybe I'll come later on to look at that. But going back to your question, maybe now in my scenario, I'll give an example of pressure to perform. You work in a bank, you are given your targets, and the the environment may not be conducive enough, or maybe you are not able to meet your targets, there are opportunities to compromise so that you maybe meet them. What do you do as a Christian? Second is on the pressure from my internal sources. I have a family to take care of. I have these pressures. I have a social grouping that I want to feel that I want to belong to, and I'm not able to finance it. How do I go about that as a Christian and still maintain my integrity? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And coming to you, Zach, maybe if some of the things that your co-panelists have not highlighted, but even more so narrowing down to supply chain, because we know that supply chain, from the public sector reports we've been seeing on the media, there is so much lack of the values and principles that organizations will be looking out for. So what in that environment would you be view as a work pressure, and how do you think we could be addressing them?
Thank you so much, Sam, and also thank you again for having me here. I want to bring it in a direction whereby, first of all, agreeing with my colleagues here that pressure comes from both internal and external sources. But again, I want to really dwell in that bit of the internal that I would want to bring a notch higher. That internal pressure can as well be perceived, or some of the expectations that you put upon yourself, in the fear that you might not be able to deliver. And to some extent now, before I come to supply chain, just to contextualize it, to supply chain again, you know, both internal and external, when you encapsulate that into Christian values, that's where now you really meet head-on pressure at the workplace. Number one, if you're a Christian and everyone knows that you're a born-again Christian, there is a standard that everyone expects you to, number one, behave. There is an expectation of your character, and there is an expectation of your conduct. So some of the requirements and some of the things that are put before you, they might not be in line with the values that you hold as a Christian. And this goes to another level where it brings in anxiety in your life. Now, to supply chain, it involves quite a lot, including procurement. And there is a whole lot of pressure that comes with procurement processes and budget management. This pressure could be what my colleagues mentioned, could be targets that have been put in place, results and some of the outcomes that you need to bring to show to your colleagues and to your bosses that you can be able to deliver. So coming from that point of having internal pressures, that you have the fear that you might not be able to deliver, and this becomes a challenge, which again brings in the issue of anxiety when it comes to work pressure. But as a Christian, what do you do about it?
Thank you, Zach. And maybe if a follow-up question, because most of you, all of you actually are talking about there is a problem within the society that has to be addressed. Christians face different challenges. For example, you're talking about some values may come within your environment that you do not align to. So the question would be, as a Christian, what are some of these in the modern work environment? How do you navigate this high pressure environment without compromising? We know that the Bible is the standard which you are referring to, but our corporate rules, the policies, even at the national level, are not written using the Bible. They are referring to the secular world. So how would you marry this one with the biblical principle that you've been taken from? Maybe if we once again start with Simeon.
So I want to pick from where Zach had mentioned that there is pressure internally and the pressure externally. As a Christian in a workplace, probably the pressure externally would be largely driven by even the expectation. They know you are born again Christian. They know you conform to certain values. So there is a high expectation on you internally, for you as a person, you also face an opposite pressure. So the opposite pressure for you will be the pressure to conform. There's a certain way in which, people do certain things. So you do not want to appear like you are the odd one out. So would you be reprimanded for it? Would you lose your job? Or would you be celebrated? So break it down and say, what is the worst that can happen? So when you break it down, then you're able now to focus not on the pressure, but focus on the fear factors. What are these things that brings about fear? Then when you address the fear factors, for example, if I have pressure to perform, and I have a track record of performance, then it means even the current assignment that I'm doing, I am likely to achieve, or even if I fail, because I'm not compromising, that alone cannot be a measure for the company to take action against me, because my track record speaks for itself. I've already established a standard and I'm known. So even if I fail to achieve in this, I should not fear, because I have a track record that speaks for itself. When I look at the other side of interest, because again, interest is another controlling factor, then you ask yourself, in achieving this particular task, what is my interest and what is the interest of the company? If you are able to demonstrate that your interest is clear and you're serving the interest of the organization, you will be able to stand your ground even if the pressure increases. Because you're able to come back and say, out of my clear conscience, this is my thought process and this is the reason why I made this particular decision. And if a decision needs to be made that would go against your values, you are able to stand your ground. Because the conscience is clear, the interest is very clear. That way, regardless of how the pressure goes, you are able to manage. The worst problem comes if your interest is not clear. Your integrity is questionable. The moment you compromise, you cannot get back out of it. So the guiding principle is your conscience clear? Are you standing by the interest of the organization, and does it conform to the values of the organization? And have you managed to cure the fear factor? Then that way you can manage the pressure. Thank you.
Thank you, Simeon, for that. And maybe if I bring in Zach, because you're talking about how you manage the fears. There are situations whereby someone may be trying to conform while the other people are not forcing you to conform. So probably, Zach, how in your environment and even contemporary environments, in businesses, how will someone overcome these compromising situations? Like you're presented with bribery, it's almost palatable in society, but in Christian values is not acceptable. How do you overcome this compromise?
Thank you for that. And one of the things that I really want to say is that pressure at the workplace as a Christian is what brings what we call occupational stress. And directly to your question that what if you're asked to get into bribery and all that, but again, I want to proceed on and say the values that you hold as a Christian is what drives you. You earlier, Ron asked, how about now when companies come up with policies and way of working that is not really Christian and it's not founded on biblical principles. The Bible says that do not conform to the patterns of the world. And if you hold on to that as a principle, and everyone at your workplace knows that you are a born-again Christian, and there's some certain, boundaries that you can't cross, then it becomes a bit easy for you. I said a bit deliberately. Why? Because again, there is an expectation that even though you are still born again, you need to feed, to fend for your family. And this is why bribery becomes in some kind of quote unquote prayer answered kind of presented to you if you're a Christian. Because they come to you in a way, coining it in a way that, look, this could be your prayer answered, and this is the time that you have to actually make it happen. But if your principles and Christian values that says that, for example, a scripture in the book of Proverbs that says that the Lord disregards and is detested by dishonest scales. If you are to take that literally without talking at it, looking at it at biblical language as I've put it, it means that anything that is gained through dishonest processes, then it means that that is something that is not within the Christian values that you hold. Then later on that, brings about guilt and all that comes with that. But one interesting thing is this. Most people, when it comes to work pressure, and I think it has been proven that most people are more stressed in the morning going towards the day. Why? Because the way you begin your day is what matters. Do you begin with a prayer? Do you begin, saying, I'm a child of God, the Lord is going to help me make it today in that corporate world? Whenever they come to me with this, unethical requests, you spoke about bribery, then will I be able to stand? And the Lord helps you that through those steps whenever you're faced with such. So there is some kind of courage and confidence that comes with prayer every morning. And more to take it even further, it has also been proven that when people are in church singing hymns and worship, they are less stressed. It has actually been proven. Because it triggers some kind of therapeutic kind of feelings and chemical reactions within you that help you to actually overcome depression or stress or anxieties or even that kind of pressure that you could be facing. So just to answer you, the way you begin your morning, especially for you as a Christian, begin with a prayer. Do you begin with a prayer? Do you petition the Lord? Because again, remember, it is the same scriptures that says, I think it is somewhere in the book of 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 7, that do not be cast all anxieties to the Lord because he cares. The same book of Philippians chapter 4 from chapter 5 4 to 6, it says that do not be anxious on anything, but in everything just bring your prayers and petitions before the Lord, so that he may be able to help you in that. So to answer you, as a Christian, prayer values is what will drive you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zach. You've talked about very fundamental principles where worship, I didn't know there's a scientific study that when you worship, when you come to church and worship, or even in the house or wherever you are, there is that relief, psychological feeling that you feel relief and it reduces stress. That is something that is very fantastic.
Yes, sorry. Wait until you hear this, because actually there is a nerve that is involved in all that. Because going a little bit into biology, but I'm not a biologist. There is a nerve that is involved with relieving stress that is triggered. That is evoked, especially when people sing hymns. It has been proven that when you sing hymns to the Lord, when you worship, that nerve is triggered and it helps you to overcome stress. And actually, the clinical application of it has proven that they've used that particular nerve. I don't have it off my head, the name of that nerve. But clinically, it has been used also to be, triggered and stimulated to actually cure depression to people who are suffering depression.
Thank you for that, Zach. And bringing in Douglas, talking about conformity. We are in an environment whereby if you do not conform, you look old-fashioned. So maybe from your perspective, how would one overcome this pressure to conform? Pressure to compromise within the situations you are in, whether the workplace, whether the business, and so many others. And what are these types of conformities that Christians face in a day-to-day basis that may lead lead them into detouring from Christianity?
Thank you so much. There are so many causes of or pressures that may push you to conform. One is maybe from the external environment, that is maybe your bosses, your company policy. You may be told that this is how we normally operate. There is a culture that has been taken for over time in the company, in the organization, that you have to conform to. Maybe the pressure could be from your own end, that I have to conform because this is what everybody else is doing. My take on that would be, first, to understand your assignment in that organization. Most of us may just imagine that we are in that organization to earn a living, but I may want to disagree. Because as a Christian, I think God puts us in an organization at any given time for a divine purpose. And the most important divine purpose that I know of is to reach out to the colleagues, to the bosses that are there, and to share with them the word of God. So once I understand the purpose for which I am there, then I'll be well guided anytime I'm pushed to conform. Now, the second bit about this, apart from the purpose to which God has put me, there's a process that He allows me to go through. So anytime I am about to conform, anytime I'm pressurized to conform, I'll be asking myself, these are the boundaries, these are the processes that God has allowed me to have as the fences. Am I about to pass? Am I about to go overboard? And that helps you and guides you on that which is right. Then, apart from process and purpose, there is also an expectation that God has for me in that organization. So as I achieve His purpose there is an expectation He has for me. So when I have an opportunity, when processing that loan, and somebody comes and tells me this customer is not qualified, maybe there's a problem here, maybe there's this valuation that is not sufficient to cover, can you talk to the valuer to help us get good values? Then I'll come to my senses and ask myself, is this right with the Lord? Am I giving the right representation of the Lord in this place? After doing this, will I be able to preach to this person? So this helps me not to conform to that which is acceptable in the organization. And it confines my action to that which is acceptable before the Lord.
Can I add something?
Yes, please, Nick.
So I think another way to avoid conforming is by creating your own practices and your own, let me say, small culture yourself. So if you are able to probably, let's say there's pressure and pressure to conform, but for you, every morning you are happy. You come to the office, you are happy, you are greeting everyone. Despite everyone feeling the pressure, feeling the burden and so on, they find you happy every day. Despite the many challenges and everyone is busy complaining about everything, complaining about the economy, you are not complaining. So basically, you are selling your own world to them. And you're painting a picture that, you know, where I stay or the world that I'm in is good. I'm inviting you, instead of conforming to your world, I'm inviting you to come to mine. So if I paint a picture of an attractive life, they will definitely reach out and tell you, how do you deal with this? How do you deal with this kind of thing? And that way, you are actually inviting them to your own life of salvation. Because they are going to look at it and they're like, yeah, we've been trying to criticize you, but look, you're not angry with us. The more we criticize you, the more you are happy. The more someone tries to hurt you, the more you respond in a positive way. So somebody somewhere will be looking at you and be like, I like the life of this person. And that way, you will not be conforming, but they are the ones to conform to you. They are the ones to come to you instead of you like bending the rules. If it means performance, if it means pressure, let's say to meet targets, you will find yourself you're meeting targets despite not compromising, and they'll ask themselves, how do you achieve this? If you're a contractor, project manager like my friend here, they are looking at you. Probably they were hoping at some point he will close his business, but they are looking at him growing and continuing to grow, and he is not compromising. So they are definitely going to reach out to him and say, tell us the secret. And then now that is the point. Now he will influence them instead of him compromising so that he can fit into their world. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Simeon. And the keynote there is painting a picture of that can attract them to your world, and not them attracting you to your world, to their world. Maybe before we go to the next question, I wanted to have a reaction on what Douglas mentioned. You've put it very rightly that the purpose of which someone has opened a business or has working employed is not just about earning a living. That is not the point. But the point is that there are people you have to reach out. But then I ask myself, or I would ask you, what is affecting most of us here? Is that where is the balance? Because at the same time, there is that pressure that you have to meet these certain goals in your business. Probably if you do give out some little money and win this tender, that would be justified. At least you didn't give a lot or take a lot like others will do. What would you think?
Thank you. I think money that you've not worked for is sweet. That's the reality. If you are employed, your salary is okay. Let me say it's budgeted for, isn't it? So when somebody offers you some money on the side, it's sweet, but it's your Christian duty to resist that, isn't it? So yes, the pressure is there. Somebody offers you that, but maintain your values. And as I'd said, just remind yourself, who am I representing here? If you remember that you are representing God, then you'll understand that anything that you do that will compromise on the image of God, because your guiding principle is what pleases the Lord. Even if the money is sweet, but it's not pleasing to the Lord, I'll trust the Lord. I'll trust the process. If the Lord says, if I'm not able to get that tender because of, or maybe that loan because of, I'm not ready to compromise, then I'll let it go. And I'll trust the Lord for another one. So for me, it's all about setting boundaries, as my colleague has said, and living within those boundaries.
Thank you very much. So moving on and bringing in Zach, from your own example, because you've been called to serve, there is pressure. You want to serve God, but there's also pressure from work. You're in the office probably as early morning till late in the evening. I liked it, you talked about prayer. Sometimes with the jam of Nairobi, you say, let me just rush to work. After all, things are okay, you don't need to pray. How do you balance that?
Thank you, Sam, for that. So, balancing. Definitely when you live life, like you are a career person, a career lady, you have a spiritual life to also carry on. It's all about, knowing the way you plan your day, to be honest. And I think I've been very lucky to work in the NGO world where you don't work on Saturdays and Sundays. However, currently I'm working I'm supporting countries in the Middle East where they are working on Sundays and Saturdays. So how do I balance that? Because sometimes I'm required to support. Sometimes I'm required to get involved in work matters. Having a plan every day, as part of your time, as part of your life, that this time is what I'm going to give to the Lord, and this is what I'm going to give in terms of my work. Because there is an expectation also as a Christian that the 8 hours or the 6 hours or the 7 hours that you have agreed to the contract that you're going to give to your employer, you're going to be faithful to that. And there is also a more obligation that you're going to commit to that. The same thing, I mean, so you have as well to have a moral commitment to your Creator, that part of that time you're going to commit it to the Lord. It's amazing that every one of us, if there is anything that the Lord gave us in equal measure, is the 24 hours. There is no one who has 25 hours. There is no one who has 26 hours. We were all given 24 hours. So of these 24 hours, how much of your time do you dedicate to the Lord? Is it the weekends? Is it the lunch hour? Is it the morning times? Because some of you or some of us could be free or could be having that privilege to have a morning devotion with the Lord. So how do you plan your time during that period? Others have the privilege to have it during the lunch hours. Do you attend lunch hours? Some have privilege to have evening fellowships. Do you attend those evening fellowships? Excuse me. Some of you have the weekends to serve the Lord, for example, or to give your service to the Lord in whatever capacity that you have. Do you use that, or do you now make it to be, this is extra time that I have, this is my time now to do personal stuff? But all that goes to discipline of time management and identifying when and at those times when you have that opportunity to serve the Lord, and that's how you give it to the Lord. Whenever you get extra time, give it to the Lord, and it shall be well.
Yeah, and it can go on, and maybe just a follow-up, Zach. When even from your personal experience, you're working in a global environment, different cultures, and all that. You need to meet your goals, the work goals. But then now you also have the irreducible minimum that qualifies you to be a Christian. How do you put that balance in terms of now you need to commit this time for these spiritual activities, you also need to commit this time for work activities?
You know, we spoke about standards. We spoke about setting those standards and also, of course, making people know who you are, what you believe in, and what you subscribe to. This is what really makes the difference. If you're an undercover Christian, you get into a context whereby it's purely secular, no regard for God, and here you are trying to fit in. Truth is, and I'll have you know that you will find it so hard to really fit into that kind of environment. So from the word go, the moment maybe you've gotten that job, or you've changed jobs, or you've moved to another office somewhere, let them know from the word go that you're a Christian. The moment you say that, there is a standard and an expectation that is expected of you from those people, even who are not Christians. You've had examples whereby people are getting into an argument, and let's say, for example, one of them is a born-again Christian. So the non-Christians are the ones who are coming and telling this person, Nani, so tulie tu, wacha tu umeokoka, wacha tu hii maneno ikwishe. So because there is an expectation they have from you as a born-again Christian. So for me, what works for me, and to be honest with you, it has not been very easy. It's a context whereby number one rule is that it's non-religious. You don't bring your religion into especially for you who work in the NGO sector, it is completely non-religious. You cannot preach, you cannot spread the word, you cannot propagate Christianity or any other religion that you belong to. But the truth of the matter is, we've been into contexts whereby other religions are being tolerated more than Christianity. But if you never stood in that standard of being a Christian, it might even be more hard for you. So the thing is, just set the standards, let them know what you subscribe to, and it will be very easy, because sometimes even when they engage into some kind of ungodly talks, they even excuse you or excuse themselves and say that don't talk this before him, he will not agree to that. So this is why, saying and standing for what you believe from the word go really will go a long way. And I think the biggest issue here, if you'll allow me, Sam, is that we've really feared to identify ourselves with Christianity at our workplaces. Because most of the things that happen in our workplaces are not in line with what Christianity is. And because you want to conform, you want to, flow along, you want to be an undercover Christian, so that again, you're not put into a precarious situation whereby you have to balance between secularism and Christianity. So for me to you is to say that just say that you're born again, if you're born again, say that you're a Christian, this is what you believe in, and they will, the human beings, the way they're designed, they will actually absolutely allow you to exercise what you believe in.
Thank you very much, Zach. And actually, the items you're speaking of really touch on us, because when you say that other religions are being tolerated, it is true, even in our places. Some meetings are actually designed favorably to those who, like, whenever they have their fastings, the meetings must end at certain times so that they are given time. But I've never had a day when I'm fasting, I being given time to go and finish early. So I think those are some of the issues that is maybe because we are actually it is true, it is because we are undercover Christians. Coming to you, Simeon, and I really enjoy the talk as we go along. You work in I don't admire your work, by the way. Forensics and fraud and investigations, they're normally not loved by whether internally or even external partners, because you are really eating into what they are milking from. So how do you balance this pressure? Because now you have your personal values. These people sometimes they've approached you. How do you deal with such issues? And how do you make sure that you don't compromise while at the same time you meet the strategic goals of your organization?
First, I thought my interaction with you should have attracted you to probably like what I do. But it looks like I need to put in more efforts. Yeah, so I think the secret is in understanding what you do, standing by your values, and the most important thing is by changing your perception towards money. Let me put it that way. If you look at the reason as to why people commit fraud, corruption, and so on, it is driven by greed. They need that extra cash or that extra coin that they don't have. That is usually the driver. Now, for you, if you fall for the same trap, driven by greed, then it means you will compromise. I usually perceive money as a medium of exchange. Legal tender. For those, when we went to school, money was defined as a legal tender. So it's a means that helps you to, sustain your living. But it is not the living. There's the living beyond money. So if you look at it from that perspective, then it means, number one, you will not be manipulated. Either manipulated using cash, or you will not even be moved by loss of money. So if a company today, let's say, is reported to have lost certain billions, I'm not moved. It doesn't touch me. It doesn't touch my emotions. I don't feel anything. It is just like, some transactions have shifted from here to here. Now, then, when I look at my personal life and how I manage, let me say, my interests, because again, what drives people is interest, is when you look at money as a medium of exchange, it's a legal tender, then it means looking at your personal life. Yes, you have pressure, but then have you thought of your life as the way a company looks at, the P&L, the balance sheet, where you're saying you can manage or you can grow and meet the objective, not necessarily by increasing the revenue. Sometimes you also deal with the bottom line, and you're okay. You can achieve by managing the bottom line. So for me, when I look at my life, I usually say God is dealing with my bottom line. So let me work on the top line. God is helping me meet my top line, but then my bottom line is also taken care of. For example, look at yourself. Last year, 2024, probably you didn't go to a hospital, so you didn't spend on medical bills. So whether you have an insurance cover or you don't have, you didn't have an expense to pay. That is God taking care of your bottom line. There was some people went through some emergencies. Your parents were okay. That is God managing your bottom line. So when you look at it from that perspective, then the greed for money or the greed for that extra gain is already managed. And therefore, you look at it and you're like, what I have can actually allow me to achieve what I need to achieve. And then you are not even bothered when you lose, because losing is part of, the experience. So when I look at the translated now to the job I do, even if, and I've actually gone through this, where you're pursuing or you're chasing a certain, let me say, pursuing some particular individuals, and they confront you and tell you, this organization does not belong to you. It does not belong to your uncle. Come, we can share with you what we have here. But now when you look at it, you're asking yourself, I'm not chasing it for the sake of my personal gain, but I'm chasing it because it is my duty to do it. And when it gets to a point that you're actually looking at it, it's bordering on your values and it's also endangering your life, then there is a safe point that you can actually withdraw, or you can actually escalate and let other people deal with it. So that helps you so that you don't go deeper into it, while at the same time you do not compromise on your stance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I know we don't have much time, but I would have really wanted to know how, for you view money as a medium of exchange and you're not moved by money. Because I think money moves everything in this society today. So I'm really trying to understand how it doesn't move. Maybe you could take a minute and tell us how can you help us even change so that we are not moved by this money.
So I'm not saying money is not a driver. Money is a driver of almost everything. Even when we are here, there's money involved. But then when you look at it from the perspective of how do you deal with money in such a way that it doesn't influence your thought process and it doesn't change your perception of things. So you will agree with me that worrying about money does not change your bank account balance. Agreed? It will not change. Some of the emotions that we attach to money cannot bring more money. So if you eliminate the emotions, eliminate the worries about it, allows you to think of money like you're thinking of a stock balance in your business, where you're saying, what can I do in order to increase my stock? And there are many ways you can think about it, including borrowing, including, there are many ways that you can. So if you look at it from that perspective, then you are removing the emotions and you're removing the manipulative aspect of money.
Thank you.
Actually, manipulative aspect of money, which is driven by greed, is what drives people. You need to achieve a certain target, so it gives you pressure to compromise. If you're in supply chain like Zach, and you came, your wife is expecting something from you. Now when you get to the office, it's like a prayer answered when an offer comes. So if you remove that emotion attached to it, then you are able to look at it differently. Thank you.
I'm sorry to cut in, but I can't help it just to say that, when it comes to character, because what I'm reading from him is that character also is key in this issue. And it is said, actually, if you want to bring out the true character of a person, give them pressure or give them food. How they behave before food, or how they behave when you give them pressure, then it will bring out the character. Now, there could be that pressure of gaining more, and the Bible warns about the greed for gain. And that pressure for, it's a prayer answered. Maybe this is what I've been waiting for. That prayer I've been making, maybe in your breakthrough. And really, it is what makes the difference. Your character at that point when you're faced with pressure, how you're able to contain yourself, how you're able to carry out yourself and to sit back and maybe, think again and ask yourself questions. Is this one standing in my way with the Lord, or will my God be happy when I engage in this? And that's why, looking at, and I like what he said, look at money as a legal tender. I've never thought about it, but come to think about it now, even biblically, contentment with godliness is great gain. So it doesn't matter whether I have $1 billion in my account or $1 million in my account, or I have just a few coins in my account. By worrying, I'll not be able to change anything, as he said. So your character, again, I think it also comes into play in this issue.
Thank you for that. And I know for bankers like Faith, who is from ABSA here, they talk about when you're being trained to be a teller, you're taught that any money you find there is stationary. So you can be walking on top of billions of money, but even picking a shilling out of those billions, it doesn't happen. But maybe to bring in Douglas, as you are talking about this work pressure, what tips, even from your experience, from what you've witnessed, what tips could you give to professionals in the society on navigating this work-life pressure? You want to lay bread on the table, but you also do not want to compromise on your salvation. What tips would you give?
I think for me, the most important one is contentment. Compete against yourself and in the right way. So if today I'm contented with what I have, what I've rightfully gained, what I've rightfully worked for, then I will eliminate that bit of greed, the need to go out there and compromise. So once you are contented with the salary that you have worked for, and you have a clear way of how to move to the next level, then it will be easier for you to resist the temptations for the short gains. Number 2, again, is trusting God. Because if you don't trust God, then you may think that you can have your own ways of maybe meeting some basic needs that your salary is not able to meet. So trust God. Trust the process that is taken you through. Let me give an example. You may have graduated together with your friends. Some may have maybe acquired 1 or 2. You may have not acquired, and you feel that you see there's a lot of pressure building up on you, that I need to reach that level. But the moment you get contented with what you have and have a clear direction on the right way to move to the next level, then it eliminates that greed, it eliminates that possibility of a compromise. The opportunities will be there, as a forensic expert will tell you. The opportunities will be there. What brings fraud? First of all, there must be an opportunity. How are you able to resist that opportunity? As a teller in that bank, you may not even have fare back home, and yet you are counting money. There'll be that urge to maybe just get some money. See, I'll get my salary before the audit has come, and I replace. But the moment you resist that urge, then you don't view it as an opportunity. You close it there. Number 2 is justification. Well, the moment you fail to be contented with what you have, then you start justifying that I'm doing so much and I'm being paid little money, maybe less than so and so who is not doing so much. So I have a justifiable reason to do this, to compromise. The moment you also get contented with whatever you have, then you also close on that justification bit. So you'll be able to manage you'll be able to move from one level to another without compromising.
Thank you very much. You've given us quite a number of tips: contentment, trusting in God. And the reason why people fail is because they have justification to compromise. But maybe in less than a minute, you're talking about peer pressure. I thought it affects only teenagers, but does it also affect working class? Like when I see my friend driving a Mercedes, I'll be motivated that I would also desire that, and then look for compromising ways to acquire this. Do you think it affects working class?
I think maybe to answer that, peer pressure is not amongst teens. The peer pressure in the working class is very, very serious, because you want to be like so and so, you want to acquire this, you want to have this property, you want to buy this type of a car, you want to take your kids to this kind of school. So it gives you that pressure, and it opens that gate now for compromising. So I believe in workplace, the kind of peer pressure that is there is a lot. I have seen it. Let me just give an example of a colleague that we were with, and at some point he was showing us the kind of a house he was building in Ruiru, and we were like, wow, this should be for an MP or some politician. I was still I think 5 years less in my career. Then after some time, this guy left for another institution. Later on, we only realized that kumbe he had targeted some accounts and did one or two. So then I sat down and asked myself, this is the person we were admiring to be like. So many a times that pressure comes because you want to be like your colleague, you want to be like your desk mate, you want to be like that friend, but you don't trust in God. Just trust in God and trust in the process that He's laid before you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you can be admiring somebody, but whatever they have is not what you think. Coming to you, Zach, what tips would you give to professionals, to people who are working, doing businesses, on managing salvation, Christian principles, not compromising while at the same time delivering on their work objectives?
Thank you, Sam, for that. And quite a lot has been said without repeating or overemphasizing. But again, the way you carry out your life really matters as well. And why do I say so? It is because some of the pressure that we as Christians go through is only created by ourselves. And this is what we mentioned earlier, Ron, that it's internal. You know, there could be some kind of a fiction that you create within your mind. And this comes mostly and most of the time because of the fear of failure. So you heap yourself a lot of pressure that maybe I'm not going to make it. And some of the things that we've spoken about here, maybe some of you have graduated above them. Nobody today can come and compromise, get you into compromising, forging some documents or, getting into bribery or some kind of corrupt deals. But internal pressure is what really is facing most of the Christians. That every time I wake up, will I be able to meet my goals? Douglas already gave an example. Wow, a colleague is making this kind of a house. Will I be able really also to make such kind of a house? Or will I be able to afford such a car? Or will I be able to really live such kind of a lifestyle? And this is pressure that we heap into ourselves as Christians, very well-meaning Christians, and even some of the absolute nicest guys that you can think of out there that are making it well, and they are nice people in church. They seem to be doing very well, but internally they're facing some pressures that there might be a failure somewhere. It could be failure to take kids to that school that you want them to go to, or maybe to achieve a milestone in career, or even being able to make certain progresses in your life, or maybe in your marriage. So what I can say is this: cultivate a culture or an attitude whereby there is some positivity in your life. Because the Bible says, above all things, guard your heart, because every thought comes from it. Because if you have negative thoughts, it's going to impact in your life. If you have positivity in your life, it's going to impact in your life positively. And this, which is why the book of Philippians chapter 4 that I quoted earlier on from verse 6, it says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petitions, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your mind in Christ Jesus. That internal peace that comes from the Lord and Him alone is very key for you to be able to navigate pressure. It doesn't matter whether that pressure comes from your bosses or your colleagues, because sometimes there is that issue of trying to compete and outdo each other with your colleagues. Maybe that pressure comes from family. Maybe that pressure comes from siblings or from parents or from spouses. That pressure, you can only overcome it if you create some kind of positive practices in your lives. Sometimes people are even told, don't just get up from your bed and straight away go to your phone. Or if you are relying on your alarm clock in your phone, the moment you put it off, you just look at maybe WhatsApp statuses, which are also giving you pressure. You're looking at maybe emails. Yes, it's true, because pressure is all over. I mean, even the WhatsApp status, people post things there that give you pressure. Could be emails or something that you saw. I mean, the first thing you do in the morning is just to look at your emails, your work emails that are also giving you pressure. And you can imagine beginning a day from a stressed point of view of how you're going to face that day or how you're going to tackle a certain situation that you're already looking at that early in the morning.
Sam, allow me to just add one point.
Okay.
On your question of what my advice to my colleagues, the professionals. I think I'll add 2 points. Number one is the importance of networking. A session like this really helps. I'm sure when you stepped out of the office or your workplace, coming here, there are a few tips here and there that are sort of, provided solutions to you. So that is one. We should never forget to meet, to network, and to fellowship as professionals. It really helps. Number two, we need to learn the practice of being vulnerable as Christians. So you get yourself to a point where, yes, you've been under pressure, and you got yourself to a point of almost compromising. You are at 80% or 90% compromising. You should be at a position of, engaging someone and telling, today I almost compromised. One problem that we have as Christians is we want to always portray a too good to be true image, even when we are internally crumbling. When our foundation internally is being shaken, we should get to a point, have somebody that you'll be like, today I was almost compromising, or I have this pressure. Sometimes even just present a very raw version of yourself. There is power in being vulnerable. The moment you share your vulnerability before someone and that person helps you, you will emerge more stronger. Because you will be able to know what are the pointers and which are the areas that you are actually, getting yourselves compromised. So that is a very good thing to do.
Thank you, Simeon. And let us clap to our panelists for that. Is quite loaded, very elaborate. So we want to come to you, the audience, maybe for a few comments or questions. If you could shoot up your hands so that we may know whoever has a comment or a question. Yes, Nashon, Alan. Anyone else? Yes, we can start with the chairman.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that wonderful insights for professionals. I think it's Proverbs 10:22. It says, the blessings of the Lord and riches makes people rich. And also, I think Ecclesiastes 10:19, money answers all things. So the thing is, what questions do you have? Because the Bible says money answers all things. Ecclesiastes 10:19. So the issue is, what questions do you have that money needs to answer? But let me make two contributions. I think from my experience, one of the greatest things that a Christian professional must have and really cry to God to have is contentment. I think it's if you and don't confuse it with settling, because you need to be content, but don't settle, because you also still need to grow. But I think because I think it's something that even kings lack, the ability to say that I am good where I am. Yes, I'm not where I want to be, but where I am, I'm contented. So you still work hard to grow, because the blessings of the Lord make you rich. But the appreciation that where I am, I'm contented with it, because that is one thing that a lot of people lack. Even kings lack contentment. Number two is, I think, identity. Identity is also one thing that a professional must have as a Christian, so that from the day one, because they always say if you give them an inch, they want a mile. Okay? So if you compromise the smallest, next time give them an inch, they want a mile. So the identity aspect of you identifying from the word God that, guys, I'm a Christian, I think it also helps so much to overcome pressure. Because it's not just a work, as Zaka said, we are living in a society of for me, I'll say, curated reels. Okay? You go to social media platform, Instagram, a lot of curated reels. They're not real. People are suffering, but the status you see, everything is very curated, and the pressure comes. Even at work. Okay? Even at work, the high dressing, the high perfumes, but there is loans and debts behind it. But you won't see it. So, contentment. Now, just question for thought as I finish. I don't know. Two questions. They can be rhetorical. There's always a saying that Christians are lazy at work, that we don't perform. And I am speaking also as an employer when I'm saying that. I don't know what you think about it, especially where we come from. You understand where we come from? That we rarely perform at work. We are so lazy. Number two, don't you think that one of the biggest problems of Lot was he built his house facing Sodom? So whenever he opened his door, he was rightly facing Sodom, sunrise to sunset. Don't you think there are certain jobs as professionals, certain departments you could run away from, so that you really don't build your house facing Sodom? That Monday to Monday you are tempted? I'm just thinking. Then lastly, I think the professional Christian life is really getting eroded. From real estate and construction, where I come from, these days, nearly every office we are creating prayer rooms for our Muslims. Nearly every office today. Nearly every development apartment, if you check the rooftops, we are creating social rooms for prayers. Where is the place of the Christian profession? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nation. We can go to Alan and then behind there. Very quick comments. I'm seeing several reactions.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Zach. It's good to see you again after many years. My name is Alan Jaworo, an engineer by profession. There's something that I think, is it Zach and Simeon was saying about the emotions. I just wanted to add something a little bit on some things now that I deal every day with money. I think in my daily life, daily. And there's one thing I came to understand about money and all this pressure that we cry around. And I came to understand that the problem is never anybody else. when it comes to issues of integrity and whatever, and pressure that we cry, I always believe shida ni wewe, sio hiyo pesa. Because I want to just read a verse in the book of, I think, 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 2. Someone to put for me, if possible. Then I'll say something, then I just sit down. Someone else. Okay. It talks about an overseer. He's saying that now an overseer should have, and then there are some things that are listed there. Should not be drunkard, should be hospitable, should not be a lover of money, should manage his house. And if you look carefully at that verse in the context of a professional and being under pressure, then you realize that if Sam tells me, let's do bribery, let's take this money, that thing is not coming from me, it comes from Sam, right? So if I can't manage my house, then I will not manage Sam's pressure. So if I can manage myself, ensure my emotions are right. I heard someone saying that money is what? I'm told money, to me, I know money is just pieces of paper. And it comes from training. It's a special paper. Yes, a special paper. Some people call it pesa or tas and something. Literally, when it's all comes from you working on your mindset, your mind, and all this kind of stuff gets out. So when we manage the inner person, the inner me, and that is where real work is, senior. Hizi zingine ni story tu. The real work is working on yourself. All these other things, don't know who is doing what, my boss is telling me what. I believe if I'm just come from inside, I've worked on, somebody talked about pressure, I think it was Zach talking about pressure from social media, and you wonder how some driving a car should affect me walking on foot unless something is wrong with your head. So it all boils around us, and that's what we really need to work on. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you very much, engineer. Thank you. There was a gentleman down there. Very quick reactions, kindly, because I'm seeing we have quite a number of people who want to contribute.
Thank you. My name is Wesley Okoth. I thought it was just a question and answer for the panel, but it's like people are explaining, they are giving questions, then answering themselves. So first of all, I want to thank the panel for a very enriching message. My question is very simple. I want to answer my question. Kindly answer it for me. So, as a young advocate trainee who is joining the law profession, you realize that even other other job sectors or other employment opportunities. I've met Zach in a panel. I've met, let's say, Ruto, and I've also met you, sir. So one day, I'm appearing at Faulu for an interview. As a Christian, will you feel biased that Wesley at least came to my session and said I did a very good job? And considering these other applications, God forgive me, but let me be biased. Let me just give Wesley this opportunity. That is my first question. Actually, now it's connected to the issue of, we are some of us who are believers in hard work. And there's this issue of people saying that you can also work smart in our society. Then again, there's another narrative that has come along whereby people are saying that it is who you know that matters. If me and Ruto were from the same village and I appeared in the forensics department, oh God, I've gotten a job. Kindly address that as professionals and as we grow. Sorry for being too long. As I had promised, I'll be short. And
Thank you, Koth. Let's take those two quick ones and then now we come to you.
I'll take that one because I have a very good experience. One time I happened to get into a panel of interviews, and it was by chance. I was not supposed to be in that panel, so I was covering for someone. And because they were interviewing for my department, I got involved. So the HR involved me at my level. And to be honest with you, it was the last interview. I was not involved in the first long listing, the short listing, the technical interviews, and now I was being involved in the oral interviews. And as I was going through the CV, I happened to find that one of the referees is a pastor I know. The referee is in fact a bishop in a church I go to. Not in my church, but in the same ministry. Was I biased? No, I was not. And I really hoped that that guy would do his best. We interviewed quite a number, and I gave my recommendations. I said, this person, if I was to get anyone into my department, it would be this person. Reason because of the character that he portrayed in the interview was a character that we could tolerate at that point, what he displayed. And the panelists agreed with me. And up to date, he's doing very well in that place where he's working. Now, it's not bias. But again, this is why sometimes when you're in salvation, the Lord puts people in there who will help you in that development of your career. I've worked for 15 years. This is my 15th. And all along all the places I've gone, I've known no one. It is only the Lord I can give credit that has given me the opportunity to be where I am today. And it has been progressive to where I am today. So it can happen that because of the relationship that you have with the Lord, He puts people in places to help you have that.
How many companies have you worked for?
So far, I've worked with 4 international NGOs for those 15 years.
You can see very clear. Let us get that quick question and then I have a different panelist to respond to.
Hi, thank you. Now, that was a very informative session. So, swali langu ni a very quick one.
Your name first.
Sorry, my name is Kome Joshua. So my question goes to our friend, the forensics expert. And the question is, you might find some guys here are in those delicate departments. Let's say I'm in a delicate department and I'm being pushed maybe to harass my friend here, Wesley. So, and this is your obligation, your duty to the organization. Let's say you're in HR or some other organization. But clearly you can say, like, I'm just being pushed to harass this guy. So how do you balance between your obligation to that organization and the need to protect this vulnerable individual? So do you resign? How do you handle that when there is that pressure and when there is that difference between your duty to the organization and your duty to your colleague? So kama unafanya investigations or something. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. Simeon, you can take that.
Yeah, so I'll give you a practical example. There's a report I'm expected to deliver on Friday, in the next 2-3 days. And I can tell that the consumers of the report expect a certain outcome from how they are pushing and they're saying, we need you to complete this and so on. So they will always say, they will not tell you we need a certain outcome, but you can tell from the tone, from how they are, they are packaging, their pressure and so on. Some of them, you would even see they are ready to take action against somebody because of a preconceived mindset or results. So how you handle it is, the first work that you need to do before you even start, your investigation is to educate your organization on what is the role of an investigator. Your role is not to manufacture evidence. Your role is not to implicate people. Your role is not to lay blame. Your role is to find out what really happened within the reasonable grounds of what can be obtained. If I saw you today stealing, I will not write in my report that you are a thief. But I will show that this evidence shows that so and so stole. And I'm not the one saying, it is the evidence that is saying. But I will not say you are a thief. It is the court to say you are guilty. So it is for me to convince the court. Can I convince the court that so and so stole? Even if I saw you, the best I can be is a witness. So I will come and I say, I saw you murder someone as a witness. But I cannot say you are a murderer. So when everyone knows that this is the role, this is what I need to do, this is where it ends. Sometimes you're being told, you've given out your report and they're saying, but your report is not telling us whether this person is guilty or not. Or your report is not even telling us what to do. So your job is find out what happened. And sometimes when you're finding out what happened, you do not say, we never found out. Or you don't say that so-and-so did not do. Remember, you're not there. But you're saying, we did not find evidence to show that so-and-so did A, B, and C. That way, even if that person, even if you confront whoever, you're saying, but I did not find. It does not mean that it is not there. It could be there. Someone else can come tomorrow and find evidence that you did not find. So in your report, you're saying, I did not come across.
Thank you.
Then someone else can come and find evidence. You're still okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Simeon, for that. Hypothesis testing, you will never say yes or no. There is insufficient or sufficient. Thank you, Koth and Joshua, for those questions. We can have one from Claire.
Yes, thank you so much. I know my time is much spent. My name is Anulisa Claire. I'm glad to be here, and thank you for the organizers of this event. So I have three comments. Okay. I have 3 comments and 1 question. First of all is to thank Mr. Ruto for talking about vulnerability. I think one thing as Christians, what we do not do most of the time is to show our weakness. And most of the time at the workplace, we want to be seen as, oh, the perfect Christian, and yet we are not perfect. That is something we all have to learn, that it's okay to be vulnerable. Everybody every person that the Lord used in the Bible had flaws in one way or the other. So it's okay to be vulnerable and it's okay to not be perfect. The second one was one of my favorite verses. I think one of the panelists mentioned it, is godliness with contentment. And once we are able to get to that place where we understand that we all are different and we are blessed differently in different ways. So the Lord has put something in us where we can bless each or somebody else with what the Lord has put in us. So we should not be able to get to that place where we compare ourselves with other people. Let us look at the blessing the Lord has given us, and then we'll be able to be content with that, for that is the Lord's blessing upon us. Third is the comment by Mr. Nashan that Christians are lazy. Well, maybe not all of them, but it happens a lot in the workplace, because Christians will find that maybe they be like, okay, we are fasting, or we want to pray, or there is always something about it, or maybe my religion does not allow. So it's a bit something that is personal, I'd say, but the Bible encourages a lot of hard work and diligence as Christians in the workplace. So my question would be, since we're talking about work pressure, when you're a servant, and this is a question either to the panelists or any of the servants in the house of the Lord, maybe a pastor or something of the sort, if you're a servant in the house of the Lord and the Lord has also blessed you with work, so there are many times there are conflicts when it comes to maybe work-related things and church-related service. So how do you handle that pressure? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any more questions in the room? I've seen Samuel. Any other so that we know how many we can take, then the panelists can address them? Okay, go ahead, Sam.
Okay, praise the Lord. I think mine. I have this problem with the office gossip, the workplace gossip. I don't know whether most Christians they have that problem with gossip in the office and maybe negativity. So my question is, there is pressure to gossip as Christians, maybe gossip your superiors. What strategies do I need to have as a Christian to resist gossip and office negativity, please?
Yes, and they will never end. So I think panelists each can take maybe a minute to respond to whichever you like. You wanted to go first,
Yeah, I was
but
going.
very briefly.
I was going to respond to the lazy Christians, but let me make a comment first on the office gossip. So I would say, if you are an open person, you know, someone who doesn't keep secrets, so no one will trust you with gossip, because you know, when they tell you, the next minute you're telling the other person, so they will say, no, this one we cannot trust. So therefore, they'll keep the gossip away from you. And you are forthright. So if you come to me, tell me something about Sam, the next minute you see me taking coffee with Sam, and I'll actually call you, clarify this. So that way, they will keep you off. The interesting point about this notion of lazy Christians, I would like to confirm that it is true and give my opinion around why is that the case. Many Christians run into the trap of spiritualizing everything. And that is where the laziness comes in. Where, in some instances where the matter is totally not spiritual, you know, you need to deliver. So the moment you want to approach it from a spiritual perspective, it will not work. You cannot build a church by, you know, praying. Yes, you will pray, finish praying, then you now sit back and say, how do we get the money to construct the church? You cannot run a crusade by just praying. You will pray. When you are done praying, you now sit back and strategize. So when you sit back, strategize, plan, and say, we need finances, this is how we are going to look at it. So even at workplace, there is time, or there are sections where you need to approach it spiritually, and then there are other areas where you need to deliver. There is the expectation that you expect, you know, everyone to understand things from spiritual way. Sometimes it doesn't require anything spiritual. So if you're able to separate them, then you're going to remain sober. Where spirituality is required, apply spirituality. Where it is financial, apply financially. You cannot apply a spiritual answer to a financial problem, or the vice versa. It cannot work.
Thank you. I'm seeing both of you are bottled up.
No.
First?
I think I just want to. I was reading some article today of a school where I think a union sued the head because of putting, I think, some microphones in the staff room. It's a school. Office gossip will always be there. And just do your work. Don't expose a lot of your family to the office. Keep your family private and do your work. Don't keep off from doing the social things that do not compromise on your salvation. Because you spend 8 hours. How many hours do you spend when you go back home? I think we'll be arriving at home at maybe 9. You spend 1 hour and you sleep. So you spend 8 hours in the office. Just make that office environment conducive. What is wrong is wrong. Draw a line. Now, on the other issue about Christians being lazy. Let me say it in one way or the other, it's also true. And as my colleague has said, we tend to spiritualize matters so much, such that maybe you get into an organization and they already have a stand against somebody who is born again because of maybe what somebody else portrayed. I once happened to be in such a situation. I'm not giving an example, but I'm just saying, and I was summoned by the director and told, here you'll grow by working hard, not by praying. He's a Christian, but he just had his own attitude. So I had now to prove myself. So just work hard. When you need to pray, let it be time that is for your prayer, not for the employer. Draw a line on that so that you also don't compromise on the company policy and you want to portray the Christianity again. Thank you.
So very quickly, I mean, it's also becoming very interesting. But there are studies that show that gossipers or people who engage in gossip, they look for acceptance. So the reason why they're gossiping with the other person is that that person may accept them for some kind of either audience or gain. But also the study says the same person who's gossiping with you will gossip with other people about you. So the best thing is just to keep off gossip. You will realize this is gossip, just shut it there and have nothing to do with it, because next time they'll be gossiping you because they came to gossip about someone else. Now there is a scripture about in the Bible that says, diligent hands, it's in the book of Psalms, I guess. It says, diligent, or Proverbs, diligent hands will serve before kings. It means hardworking hands will always serve before kings. And sometimes, when you try to look at it with the bigotry of the question about Christians being lazy, it sounds like an oxymoron. Because here you are, you need to be diligent and hardworking so that you can serve before kings. And on the other hand, there is that about, Christians being lazy. I've had a chance to mentor quite a number of people, and even my juniors in my place of work. And some of them look at me and ask me, wow, how did you make it that fast to those levels that you've made to? And I usually tell them two things: hard work and the fear of the Lord. When you combine those two, for sure, just know that the Lord will see you through even the higher up the ranks, and whatever it is that you want to go achieve. So to answer that, there are few, I would call them mutants, because if Christianity believes that that is hard work, so there are few mutants out there that purport to be Christians who are spoiling for the Christians that are hardworking. And there are cases whereby we've seen people who've ended up being lazy and even losing jobs just because they were over spiritual or maybe over, godly and all that. And they ended up actually spoiling for the Lord. So the thing is, just hard work and have the fear of the Lord, and then that scripture will come true in your life.
Thank you very much. Let us give a handy clap to our panelists. But I think there is something that we are not getting. When you're talking of gossip, I don't want to miss on news on the streets. Maybe new appointments that are coming. Yeah, so what is it? What defines gossip? Because again, you may be sitting there, I don't want to gossip. You just see tomorrow, my boss used to tell us in daily stand-ups, come early and refresh your mails. You may find that you are sacked. So it's also good to know that these things before they happen. I don't know, there are people with burning points here. I don't know if you can take 30 seconds because I'm time bad. We can give him. Yeah, just take the mic so that after you can give him the mic first and then.
Okay, I just had a pointer. He had 3 questions that I think went unanswered, right? Yes.
They were rhetorical.
Oh, okay,
They were
fine.
rhetorical.
I also just wanted to say there is a question that Claire asked, the last question that I think has not been addressed.
What was the question?
How to balance the work between Being a professional, you're a pastor, you're a servant, and also you're working. So how do you balance the two?
Can we give to somebody new, or you want the panelists to take it? I wanted to give to Zach Hamptons because he's not spoken today. Maybe 2 minutes.
Praise the Lord. You said you're a servant and you're working. Last time when I was here, I said supposedly you are a cobbler and you're a Christian. Your Christianity does not come out by sticking crosses on every shoe that you make. It comes out by doing a good job, right? So let them see your Christianity in what you're doing. Because where you work, you've not been employed to be maybe a prayer contractor or something. You've been employed to do a good job, right? So as you're doing that good job, they'll want to know more about you. And then the thing that we always miss is to tell them the person that has made you be a good person. And that is the point of evangelism. She wants to add something.
About that, it was not in terms of Christianity, just in terms of there's so much you have to do when you're a pastor, you're a leader, and there's so much is required of you when you're at the workplace. So trying to make sure you do not look like, oh, she doesn't come to serve anymore, she doesn't come for practice anymore, or he, and the other side, you're also working. So that.
Oh yeah, I think that has been clarified. He's saying, for example, you're a pastor in the church, and at the same time, you are a professor in a university. So how to balance the two of them at the same time?
Maybe can I attempt?
It's okay.
So the work life that we have, it teaches us to, delegate, be able to handle pressure, and remember, in your plate you have both the ministry life and your personal life. So I think that is where the art of delegation comes in. But where there is real gap, and this one now applies to all of us, is there's real gap on the ministry side. Because while the work that we do is highly structured with a clear JD on who does what to achieve what and so on, you find on the ministry side, there's gray area. Everything is gray. So while people are expecting you to deliver on something, that deliverable is not clear. So you are a pastor, but there's someone who is saying, I expect this of my pastor. Remember, it's the expectation based on their judgment. On your end, you have a different understanding of what your role is. So many a times you end up under-delivering in their own eyes and in their own judgment. So if there is a way that the ministry side or the church side starts thinking of structures and being able to get clear on what do we expect of this person. You are a minister of the gospel and you're also a full-time employee somewhere. What do we expect of you within the reasonable grounds of what you can achieve? If we get to that point, then we eliminate the friction, we eliminate the conflicts. Otherwise, if we don't solve there, the answer is obvious. We will always say that you're focusing so much on your job and less of the ministry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Maybe just to wrap it up, life is not complicated. It's so simple. Look at what Jesus did. He just did his part, the small bit that he could do, and left everything else because he was not committed to the needs of the society. People may think that he was committed to the needs of the society, but if you read your Bible carefully, you'll find that Jesus Christ was only committed to his Father. And if you have that kind of commitment, it will define your ministry and your purpose. In the end, you'll realize that life is very short and God just wanted us to do a small piece of the puzzle. And God is not calling us to do everything. He's just calling us to be faithful with the small job He has given us. Maybe to pick up what Nation said in 30 seconds, he asked about Sodom and Lot pitching his tent towards Sodom. Are there places that we should not be working in? Well, you find out the Bible says the very place that Lot was told not to look, the Bible says that Abraham was looking at that place. So the problem really was not Lot in Sodom, but rather Sodom inside Lot, right? So I'll finish it by this. You know, sometimes we tell people, overcome this, work on yourself, do this and that. And that is what they've come to Christ. The Bible says, this is the victory that overcomes the world, right? Which victory is that? Christ in us, right? And he says, he combines it with the faith that we so much affirm. So if you're born again, whoever is born of God overcomes the world. So if you are born again, the one who is living in you will help you to overcome the situation around you. The other thing it says, and this is the victory, even our faith, right? And once you know that faith is something people can see in you, you don't have to be preaching to everyone, but they can pick it in you, they can see it in you. The same way they did with Paul, and they say of the apostles, these are the men who have turned the world upside down because they were able to see it in them. I think that's my comments for today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Once again, a round of applause to all of us who've participated. Thank you very much.